Hi, I am Lobna Hassan. I am a postdoctoral researcher with the Gamification group at Tampere University and University of Turku. I research a lot of topics, including gamification, virtual reality, participation, but noteworthy to this presentation, I research storification and the use of engaging narratives. For a very long while, I wanted to know what it's like to make and edit videos, and so I'm making use of this opportunity and delivering my presentation in a new format. I hope that you would find this both entertaining and informative. On behalf of my co-authors who did incredible work for this research that I am only privileged to be showcasing to you today, I am presenting the paper titled The Relationship Between Player Types and Gamification Feature Preferences. This research was conducted in 2019 and its aim was, as you can guess, to investigate the relationship between gaming styles, or what we commonly refer to as player types, and perceptions of different gamification features and designs. The following videos depict a comedic imagination of said research process. Nonetheless, the empirical findings and information presented in this video are reflective of the research paper. It's a typical workday. The researcher we're following is a postdoc researcher going about her usual business, writing research papers, taking notes, thinking about the world and stuff. Her research is about this cool new thing called gamification. Gamification perhaps reflects a societal movement that is trying to transform mundane activities and activities that are not inherently enjoyable into activities that are engaging and that people would want to partake in more. Gamification, hence, has been introduced to many aspects of life, such as to exercise, so that exercise becomes more engaging and frequent. Gamification was also introduced to work activities to promote gameful efficiency, especially with tasks that might not be inherently enjoyable, such as doing paperwork. Gamification can also be employed at home to transform house chores that are, chores into engaging battles against monsters. This idea and practice of transforming mundane activities into engaging ones is not exactly new. It is seen in a form or another throughout human history in several attempts to make life engaging. The term gamification itself, perhaps, is, however, relatively new. More formally, gamification is understood as a process of designing systems, services, and processes through practices of game design, often with the intention of stimulating engagement and motivation. In the context of education, gamification has the potential to create a gameful experience that not only enhances learning outcomes in terms of grades and knowledge acquisition and retention, but this gameful experience also helps activate learners and can teach them interpersonal skills outside of academic knowledge. How awesome is that? So the researcher continues to go about her day, reading more literature on gamification. Then she hears that something is unfolding and she peacefully reaches out for the news, and she learns that it that must not be named has reached her country. Trying her best not to touch any door handles, the researcher ventures into the outside world and buys her precious stock of toilet paper and noodles. She then closes all the doors, shuts all the windows, and now feeling slightly paranoid but safely tucked in her home, the researcher and her colleagues go on to try and figure out how to move all education online. Specifically, how do we make education both effective and engaging? Now, that is not exactly an easy task to do, and so the researcher keeps thinking about the optimal way to arrange online teaching, and she keeps thinking and thinking and thinking. The researcher then remembers that she had read about gamification in education, and so she goes back to that literature. Now, here is the thing. There are many ways to gamify. To make things a little bit simpler, one way to categorize gamification based on psychology theory and previous research is to roughly categorize gamification designs into three large categories: achievement-based gamification, immersion-based gamification, and social gamification. Achievement-based gamification is where we see mechanics that highlight achievements, such as badges, trophies, which are often earned in return to the completion of challenges and quests. Immersion-based gamification is often where the aim is to immerse people into stories and realities outside the immediate ones. This is often attempted through the use of characters, narratives, and intricate stories. Social gamification, as its name suggests, is where social interaction and community are emphasized and often facilitated through discussion forums, sharing options, and chats. While there are different ways to design gamification, individuals themselves differ in their perceptions of said gamification designs. Within gaming research, one way to understand individual differences is to look into gaming style preferences. Achievement gaming preference is where activities such as competing and winning and highlighting achievements are preferred. This is perhaps very present in first-person shooter games such as PUBG, where the goal is to win and survive the battlefield to get to your chicken dinner. Immersion gaming preference is where there is a preference for creative tools, characters with background stories, and engaging narratives. This is perhaps the appeal behind Stardew Valley, where you get to create and run your own farm and discover the town close by and its characters. Social gaming preference is where social interactions are preferred. And guess what? This can also be seen in the popular game PUBG, where players can often play in teams of their friends. This goes to show that games can often facilitate more than one gaming style at a time. Similarly, individuals have more than one gaming preference at a time. Consequently, whether it is gaming or gamification, not everyone finds the same designs enjoyable, useful, engaging, or motivating, depending on their preferences, and not everyone would intend to use gamification if it is implemented. Nonetheless, these variables are especially important for gamification designers, as gamification simultaneously targets enjoyment, usefulness, and motivations, preferably in an ethical manner. It now appears that the question of how do we make education both effective and engaging is perhaps a too simplistic of a question. Instead, a question that may be more reflective of how complex reality is to ask which gamification designs would be efficient and engaging for which individuals. One way to uncover this is to investigate which gaming preferences associate with positive perceptions of enjoyment, usefulness, and motivationability, and use intentions of which gamification features and designs. Based on previous literature and perhaps intuitively, the researcher and her colleagues went on to hypothesize that achievement gaming preference associates with positive perceptions of achievement-related gamification. The same can be said for immersion gaming preference and social gaming preference. These hypotheses can be presented in this nice and non-confusing at all model that we have here, where on the left-hand side you can see gaming preferences, and on the right-hand side you see perceptions of enjoyment, usefulness, motivationability, and use intentions of the three conceptual categorization of gamification features. Noteworthy, the researcher did not only investigate the hypothesized relationships, but all possible relationships between the variables, such as, for example, between immersion gaming preference and achievement gamification. To investigate these hypotheses, the researcher and her colleagues decided to set up a Vignetti study. In a Vignetti study, designs are presented to study participants who are asked to answer a series of questions about their perceptions of the presented designs. In the Vignetti study, the researcher and her colleagues they chose Moodle because it is a tool that is familiar to most academics and potential study participants. Imagine designs of Moodles were produced in which overlays of gamification features were added onto Moodle, as you can see in the pictures depicted here. The designs investigated in this study included the previously outlined immersion, achievement, and social gamification features. The Vignetti questionnaire asked participants to first answer a series of questions to determine their gaming preferences. Then they were asked to evaluate the imagined gamified Moodle designs in terms of their perceived enjoyability, usefulness, ethicalness, motivationability, and to also indicate whether they would like to have these designs actually implemented in Moodle. This is how the researcher imagines their study went like. Participants were recruited taking into account that appropriate social distancing was to be maintained. Nonetheless, old habits die hard, and the researcher forgot and still shook hands with the participants. She's fine though, she's fine. Next, the participants were asked to answer a series of questions about their gaming preferences.
So tell me, do you like social gaming? You know, gaming where you get to talk with friends and chat with them. What about achievement gaming, when you can highlight what you have achieved and show your mastery to your friends? Maybe instead you're a fan of immersion in games and getting lost in complex storylines and talking with different characters?
As individuals can have preferences for more than one gaming styles, as we previously discussed, the participants of the Vignetti study were also given the room to indicate more than one gaming preference, as you can see on the research model here. The participants were then asked to evaluate different gamification overlays on Moodle.
What do you think if we add trophies to your Moodle pages? Would you find them enjoyable? Would you find them ethical and motivating? How about stories? Do you find them enjoyable? Do you find them ethical? How about role-play and going through your Moodle as different characters? You know, like this.
Now, these two particular participants were not very talkative for some reason. Nonetheless, the questionnaire employed in this study garnered 144 participants, and the table here shows the demographics of the participants. Most of the participants who chose to answer the questionnaire were males, and most of them were in the target group of university students, as can be seen from their age and education levels. Happy with how the empirical research went, the researcher and her colleagues started their data analysis through structural equational modeling on smart PLS. They first checked reliability and validity measures as seen in this table here. Validity and reliability measures were within acceptable common thresholds, and so the researcher and her colleagues were happy and cheerful, and they continued with model testing. As you have seen earlier, the model being tested involved a lot of relationships and variables, and so reading the model testing tables was not a particularly easy job. However, the researcher wishes to highlight the following. As hypothesized, achievement gaming preferences associated with positive perceptions of achievement-related gamification in terms of enjoyment, usefulness, motivation ability, and future use intentions. Immersion gaming preferences associated with positive perceptions of usefulness and motivation ability of immersion-based gamification. However, no associations were found between social gaming preferences and any gamification designs. The results that we have today aptly reflect what we know from previous literature. Some gamification designs, perhaps the currently popular ones, are most suitable for individuals with achievement gaming styles or achievement orientations. The results from individuals with social gaming styles and immersion gaming styles seem to indicate that perhaps we need more research into gamification that can be suitable for the preferences of a wider spectrum of people. What we actually now know from more research around the gameful process or the gameful experience that gamification attempts to foster is that said experience is very complex and it involves multiple dimensions. Some gamification designs may be suitable for stimulating some of these dimensions, such as the dimensions of achievement and enjoyment, but they may only be able to stimulate these dimensions for some people and not for everyone. And so we need more research into gamification designs and practices. It is also, however, important to highlight at this point that it is possible that it is our study design that was not fully able to capture the preferences of individuals with social gaming styles or immersion gaming styles. And hence, we encourage you, future researchers, to adopt more research methods such as qualitative interviews or analysis of behavioral usage data. One more thing that we can see from our model is that the variance explained by the model remains relatively small, and this may indicate that perhaps our way of understanding individual preferences through an examination of gaming styles and gaming preferences may be a limited way of said examination. We encourage future researchers to investigate differences in perceptions of gamification based on other methods of understanding personal differences, such as based on understanding personality type, education, technical skills, lifestyles. There's more that can be researched and more that we need to understand about gamification and preferences and personal perceptions of gamification, and I encourage you to continue with said research. Thank you.